Hello and welcome to the channel. If you've been following this Kia Niro plug-in hybrid channel, I've sent off the first oil change to a place called Blackstone Laboratories. And the car is running great, but I had a little bit of concern about, these are the guys, right? These are the people right here, this Blackstone. I had them send a bunch of different samples so that I could send consecutive oil changes out to them. I've removed the air cleaner assembly, which is a pretty superficial thing. You just need a 10mm wrench. You have to pull out one airflow sensor right here. I left the throttle control, the electronic throttle body in place, but essentially taking off the air filter gives us a chance to look at the real system here, the real Kappa 2 engine, that 1.6 liter engine we have. And I bought an endoscope for 45 bucks on Amazon. I bought this endoscope, which is just a camera on a long, thin cable. And I'm really impressed with it. It has a focal depth of about 3/4 of an inch. And I've ordered the 16mm, the long 16mm spark plug wrench to get under these ignition coils, pop out the spark plugs, take a look at them, and take some pictures of the piston heads, just to get a little, to capture a little moment in time. So as the car ages and wears, I can compare it, 10,000 miles from now. Also, this positive crankcase valve, the PCV valve, which allows you to reburn gases from the crankcase. I wanted to check this valve. And just in this video, identify, for the couple of you out there that might really want to know how all the pieces work under this hood, and now that the air cleaner assembly is off so we can actually see it, I want to make this a really comprehensive review for those couple people. And please leave comments on your cars, good, bad, anything. I've really enjoyed this car, but for the sake of the channel, I really wanted to do a very comprehensive review of how it's running and all the details about the intelligence that's built into the hybrid system here. Okay, so the first thing you have to do, and I'm not suggesting working on your car, taking off the air cleaner assembly, this here, with the airflow sensor is in here. But essentially this is just taking air from the front grille of the car, those 3 tiny little holes right here on the very top of your grille. That's your air intake. That's gonna go into your filter and around to your airflow sensor. That airflow sensor is gonna communicate with your ECU, your engine control unit. And the engine control unit is going to take that airflow, it would sit right in here, that measurement, and it's going to adjust your EGR, your exhaust gas recirculation system, which is this. This is the cooler, because as that hot exhaust gas comes out, it's very hot, it's cooled down, and then a valve, the EGR valve, is opened, and a certain portion of your exhaust gas is recycled back into your intake. So that airflow sensor and that system, that's all we've removed, is the filter and that sensor. But the first thing you need to do if you were to work on your car, and again, I'm not suggesting this, but of the 3,600 page manual that I'm learning, there's probably 200 pages in there that have to do with how to safely go about working on the car. And the first thing you always have to do, and I would go in the trunk to show you, except if you unplug your battery, which you need to do, it's going to take the power out of your hatch in the back, so you won't be able to open that door. So you're going to go into your trunk, open your hatch here, you're going to pull off this cover, which is not the easiest thing to do. Having a little bit of problems, there we go. Just get that off, and you're going to take a 10mm wrench, and you're going to take off the negative side, not the positive, but you're going to take off that negative pull there, and just let that hang off to the side. So that's always step number one. Now step number two, if we can climb on out of here, is in your fuse box. Climb back under here. Bit of a messy edge. So now we're gonna come to this fuse box here. See if I can do this. I have one side unclipped. We're gonna pull this off. And under here is a cutoff switch. So these are all your fuses. We'll take a look at what's what. But this is the important one. This is always pulled up and you'll feel it. It is actually called the high voltage cutoff switch. And what's neat is under this lid to your fuses, there's a map. And it directly corresponds to what you see here. So if we take a look, just like the breaker box in your house, these are your fuses. And just so you know, at the top here, you have extra fuses and you have a pair of these tweezers down here that you can pick up. So if you burn out a fuse, there are some built-in extras in there to replace them. But you can see in here, you got your front wipers, your horn, your your engine control unit, IEB, the intelligent emergency brake, the electric water pump, the dual clutch transmission, and so you can get an idea of all the different circuits in the car that have a designated fuse, including the power distribution modulars that are connected to your ignition, the air compressor, ignition 2, fuel pump, and the battery control fan. So that gives you an idea of all the protected circuits in the car. And you've pulled out that switch, and now you have to wait 3 minutes for any capacitors or any other power in the system to bleed out. After that, if you were going to pull this cover off, I would say have experience with cars first. There's really not much wrenching to do, but you do have to be careful. You do just need a 10mm wrench, a nice Phillips head, a flat head, and a wrench, including a torque wrench to get the... There are specific torque settings on everything, and I have those in my manual, so I can do those. Okay, now on to this Kappa 2 engine. This is their 1.6 liter. There's a lot we could talk about, and in a YouTube short, I tried to explain what some of these parts were. But essentially, back in 2006, they started designing this engine, the Kappa 1. And they did a few interesting things. A lot of the Hyundai engines have these high-pressure aluminum cast bodies. So it has that. It has an offset crankshaft. It has a moly coating on the cylinders, some tech coating on the inside of the cylinders. The pistons in here that are going up and down, they've shaved weight off the skirt of that piston, those aluminum piston heads. And like a lot of GDIs, it uses a low tension oil ring. So the first two rings on your piston are to keep compression, and the last one is to keep oil, to scrape oil back under the piston. Well, the piston heads in each of these are actually quite small, and it has the offset crankshaft. So I believe the rods are shorter too. So all the action is happening in a really tight spot. All of this is, there's a water-cooled jacket in here, which keeps the cylinders cool. And believe it or not, the piston rings help transfer that heat from that very hot piston top out to the cylinder walls. So I have this 16mm wrench on order, but once we take off these ignition coils, I can pull the plugs. I'll take the endoscope and actually get a picture of the piston heads now at just under 7,000 miles. In here, we can stick where you stick your oil, obviously, is the top of your cams there, and we can take a look at that later. Right now, there is a bit of a smell of gas. I don't have the opposite problem of sludge, is I have extra blow-by gases getting down into the crankcase, and the Blackstone lab results will come in, and I'll report back to the channel right away. The car is running great. This is just something I wanted to do to understand the system and share with you guys. So some of the different things going on up here, the cams are on the top. Well, your continuously variable valve timing for the intake cams, or valves, cams, and your exhaust are both here on this far side. And you can see where the different modulars, the electronics go to there. These obviously go to each of the ignition coils. Then you have a camshaft position sensor for the exhaust and the intake. So there's one of them there. You have your high pressure fuel pump under this kind of rubber gasket, and that's taking, so you have two fuel pumps. You have the fuel pump back by your tank, which is pushing low pressure fuel to this mechanically driven high pressure fuel pump. So what's interesting is there's a piston in there, and electronically a certain portion of fuel, as the piston dropped, is sucked into the system. Then the gate is closed, then the piston goes up and creates that high pressure, and then a valve opens and that high pressure fuel is released into the GDI injectors on the intake side. And we'll get a picture of that. Other things going on here, we talked about the EGR system, the exhaust recirculation valve, and another thing we can look at is the co-branding on all the parts. So on the throttle control, just like the throttle body, it just opens and closes and lets air into the intake. You can see it's a Bosch part and it's co-branded with Hyundai and Kia. And most of these parts stay on the EGR cooler and this sensor right here. This is the cooler. You can see that many of them are co-branded parts. So until we get down into the piston heads, I just want to show you this endoscope. So this was $45 on Amazon, and it's blurry from a distance, but then as soon as you hit its focal depth, actually my hand's not the best, we'll just go right in here and we'll take a look at the top of these cams so you get an idea of the picture quality of this thing. But I'm really impressed. Never owned one of these, but if you have kids or you're curious, you're gonna end up sticking it in your ear and your nose, and you won't be disappointed. It's really cool. But now I've got it mucked up with stuff from the car, so we won't be doing that. So you can take a look at the picture quality here, down by the springs on the valves and up here on the top of the cams. I can't really get it anywhere else, but you can see if you hit its focal depth, you get a good amount of clarity. And yeah, so I'm really impressed with this little device, and I hope for the channel it can actually report back some useful information about the pistons. And we do an oil change, we'll just stick it up there under the crankcase and just take a good look at the parts. So yeah, that is a closer look at your engine, and a few little rambles about this Kappa 2. Other interesting things I found, I'll just report back to in the next video, and hopefully I'll have those results from Blackstone. And yeah, the car really has been great. So this is just an update on how the parts work, and I'll be in touch. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.